After the break in London, the Mayor bows to pressure. More cars will become eligible for the ULEZ scrappage scheme. Tonight, the pressure pays off. More cars become eligible for the ULEZ scrappage scheme as the Mayor bows to criticism from his own side, but it is too late for some.
Even with £5,000 from the scrappage scheme, we're still looking at £15,000 to get a new vehicle on the road.
Also on the programme, imagine if this fire happened on a packed train. A ban on e-scooters starts today. A baby bud desperate to make it to Britain. We'll be showing you the endangered orchid now calling London home, and tears and cheers as we hand out People's Project cheques to this year's lucky winners. Good evening. The Mayor Sadiq Khan has given in to pressure from his own party and will allow more people to claim financial help for the expansion of the ULEZ zone. The scheme allows Londoners a grant of £2,000 if they scrap their older, polluting vehicles. It will soon be widened to include all families on child benefits and some larger businesses. It might go some way to ease the criticism that has been aimed at the Mayor's plans, but there's still a legal challenge to go, and those angry at feeling caught out by today's announcement. Here's our political correspondent, Simon Harris.
A perfectly good, serviceable vehicle. Sadly, within the hour, we're driving it to the scrapyard.
Neil Blackwell shared his van's final journey on social media. His South London animal rescue charity sent it to the scrapyard yesterday. Little did he know the Mayor was about to change the ULEZ scrappage scheme rules, but it wouldn't have made any difference.
We could not and cannot, like most other animal rescue charities, afford to replace two vehicles. Even with £5,000 from the scrappage scheme, we're still looking at £15,000.
Under the new rules, charities can now claim a grant for scrapping 3 vehicles instead of 1. So can small businesses with up to 50 employees. It was capped at 10 employees. And all families on child benefit can now apply for a £2,000 grant to scrap a car. The Mayor's decision to amend the £110 million scrappage scheme follows growing pressure from some Labour MPs in London and Labour council leaders.
The Labour MPs, Labour councils, want the ULEZ to be expanded, but they want the government to give us support. The announcement today is without a penny of support from the government. We're listening, the government isn't.
Have you been forced into changing the scrappage scheme because of the pressure?
I'm quite clear. As a mayor, I'll always listen to Londoners.
Since 2019, the ultra-low emission zone has embraced every street inside the North and South circulars, but from August the 29th, it will cover the whole of Greater London. Drivers who fall foul of the cameras because their cars or vans fail to meet modern emissions rules will be charged £12.50 a day. It's provoked widespread opposition. Some Londoners have taken the law into their own hands. Around 200 of the new cameras have been vandalised.
Today's changes to the scrappage scheme are unlikely to silence demands from the Mayor's political opponents for the ULEZ extension to be postponed or scrapped. And he's still facing a challenge in the High Court from 4 London boroughs seeking to have it declared unlawful.
The Tory-run authorities argue the cost of living crisis makes the Mayor's policy ill-timed.
Sadiq says that he is very conscious about people's well-being. The amount of letters, conversations I've had with older people that are saying that this is going to impact their well-being because they're not going to be able to get to doctor's appointments, not going to be able to see their families, they're not going to be able to get out to do their shopping.
For now, the Mayor has no plans to put more money into the scrappage scheme, and it's still not available to drivers from beyond the Greater London boundary. Simon Harris, ITV News, Bexley.
Well, the ULEZ expansion, for better or for worse, is the policy of Sadiq Khan's mayoralty is built on. It faces legal challenges, political challenges and even activists damaging the infrastructure. Air quality campaigners stress it's the change we need to protect our health. Well, joining me in the studio is Neil Garrett, the leader of the Conservatives in the London Assembly, and the Labour MP for Putney, Fleur Anderson. Welcome to you both.
Thank you.
Neil, let me come to you first. The Mayor's done what responsible politicians should do. Listen to voters, address their concerns. Giving credit to him this evening, are you?
Well, I think we welcome the change that he's made. The concern we have with ULEZ is that the impact on air quality that is expected is quite small and the impact on the cost of living is very large. So even with this change, even if people get the scrappage money, they're still out of pocket by thousands of pounds because it only covers a fraction of the cost of a new car. And so it leaves people still with a dilemma of being out of pocket thousands of pounds or having to pay £12.50 a day, which is the dilemma the Mayor is putting them in. This is why we still think that he should not go ahead with the expansion. What would you do instead? We think at the very least he should delay it to give people more time. In actual fact, we think a better plan, rather than this, which is focused on generally the least well-off who own older, non-compliant vehicles, we think the focus should be more on commercial vehicles, cleaning up buses and looking at how the sort of commercial fleet can be improved rather than...
for quantity to improve air quality, you need to go for the volume of vehicles. That's not going to do it.
Well, ironically, the Mayor says that hardly any vehicles will be affected. So this is why we think it's more than he says, somewhere between 10 and 20%. But those people are disproportionately people who are driving older cars and who are the least well off and least able to bear the brunt of this cost of living impact. That's the way that we see it, and I think a lot of Londoners see it that way.
Fleur, back to today's announcement, the enlargement of who is eligible. He could have done this sooner, couldn't he? Saved a lot of people a lot of heartache.
Well, there's plenty of time left to go, and I've been arguing from the beginning for that scrappage scheme to go alongside the ULEZ, which is very welcome for so many Londoners who are going to be breathing clean air when it comes in. So I think it would be very dangerous not to go ahead and to listen to the Conservatives on their go slow ideas, but I think going ahead but increasing the scrappage scheme. The child benefit part of this will mean that 875,000 Londoners are now eligible for the scrappage scheme, and there's several months to go before that comes in, so there's plenty of time and it's really welcome news. But the main thing is that it happens, and it really works because 30% of those admissions of children for asthma to hospital have been reduced because of the ULEZ so far. So this will make a huge difference to children's lives across London.
What about working Londoners, though? People who aren't earning vast sums in the outer boroughs, who actually do need their cars just to get around because they don't have tube stops and buses coming every few minutes.
And that's why the scrappage scheme is so important, and it's fantastic that the Mayor has had
the biggest scrappage scheme. It won't cover all the costs, though. You heard Neil in that report there, the gentleman, he said it wouldn't even touch the sides.
A lot of people think that they won't be able to drive their vehicle, but they can. My mum said to me just a couple of days ago, I'm not going to be able to drive into London to see you. She checked her vehicle and she was compliant. 9 out of 10 vehicles are compliant. So it's a very small number that aren't, but they are the most polluting ones. So action has to be taken, and it's just going to be too slow otherwise.
A small number, do you agree with that?
The Mayor's own figures show that it's closer to 20% than 10%. The 10% figure is about vehicles driven, which skews towards vehicles that are driven more. People I hear from, for example, older people who've just retired, they're not working anymore, they don't need a car to get to work, but they still have a car to visit friends and social visits. It's hard for them to justify expense of a new car when, as they say it, they have a perfectly good, serviceable car. That's a group of people, those older people, getting hit, I think, particularly hard. And again, the scrappage scheme only covers a fraction of the cost of replacing the vehicle.
Fleur was talking there about the number of young people, the number of people in London with breathing difficulties and asthma. It is an issue. Do you never think that maybe you'll be on the wrong side of history? We'll look back upon this as seatbelts in cars, smoking in pubs.
I don't think so. I mean, I think cars they're naturally becoming cleaner as newer cars come on the road. Older cars naturally go off the road. There's a natural cycling. What this is really doing is accelerating that. I think the challenge is that it puts this very severe financial pressure on people who just can't really afford it. And I think in normal times, outside of this debate, Labour politicians would say that the cost of living is a big problem. And they would say that poverty puts a huge strain on people, both in terms of their mental health and their physical health. And those things the Labour Party would also claim to care about. I don't know why it is that they suddenly are blind or deaf to the concerns that we hear all the time on ULEZ.
blind to the cost of living?
I would say most of those who are on lowest incomes don't have a car in London, and they live on those most polluted roads. They're the ones who are affected most. So it's a matter of social justice to take this action and not wait for a very, very long time, but to do it as quickly as possible, but to support Londoners in swathes, as the Mayor is doing today.
OK, Fleur and Neil, thank you both very much for coming in. The debate continues.
Thank you.
Thank you.
A man has been jailed for 32 years for the murder of a 20-year-old man from Plaistow in August in 2021. Dion Brisport from Hackney shot Otis Sarkis in a drive-by shooting in Upton Park. He died in hospital 2 days later. Another man who was involved, hasn't been sentenced yet. Police say they will be speedy and robust with any protesters at the FA Cup final at Wembley on Saturday. The Metropolitan Police say they will deploy 1,200 officers from 3 forces, including the Met, the British Transport Police and Manchester Police, to prevent any tensions between City and United fans. And the England cricket team's bus was held up on the way to Lord's for the Test match against Ireland when Just Stop Oil protesters blocked roads out of the city. The climate activists marched slowly along this road in Kensington, causing long traffic jams. The England cricketer Johnny Bairstow posted on his Instagram story, "If we're a bit late, it's not our fault, but the match went ahead on time." Next tonight, banning e-scooters from our trains. The new rule comes in today. It's due to fears that overheating batteries could start fires on board. But it is not a law. British Transport Police will not take any action.
The rail network ban does not include e-bikes, despite their use of the same lithium batteries found in other e-mobility vehicles. Each day there are a lot of different electric vehicles on London's roads, so which ones are causing you the most problems?
So we've seen an increase in fires involving e-bikes. We've gone to 53 e-bike fires this year alone, which is 4 times as many as e-scooters.
Despite not being legal to ride on public roads, privately owned electric mobility vehicles are in a thriving industry, with many scooters costing thousands of pounds. But this repair shop in Islington says fires are happening because customers and suppliers are cutting costs. Patrick, why are some e-bikes and e-scooters catching fire?
It's because people are buying cheaply from unreliable sources. What I want to point out is that e-scooters and e-bikes are extremely safe if used properly. From what I've seen from the videos in the internet, these e-bikes or these e-scooters are usually homemade or cheap knockoffs. For some, e-mobility vehicles are the answer to improving London's air quality. Patrick says the industry needs better regulation to support its growth. They cost roughly 1p per mile to run, and I think they really need it in terms of combating the cost of living crisis, the problems with the future of our planet in terms of the pollution. For now, the future of e-scooters is not on London's transport network. E-mobility vehicles are already banned on TfL services. Today's railway ban makes it harder for e-commuters to get around. Antoine Allen, ITV News.
Now, it's 2 weeks since an unprecedented apology from the water companies and a promise to spend £10 billion on tackling sewage spills into our waterways. That money, of course, will go on our water bills in the years to come. But clean water campaigners say they've seen little evidence that anything will actually change. Carolyn Sims spent the day on the banks of the River Roding, where sewage discharges happen regularly.
Well, this is where it came out in this pipe here.
On a stretch of the River Roding, Paul Powsland discovered a dirty secret. He was mapping the 3rd largest river in London as part of his work to protect it when he filmed this: raw sewage and domestic waste pouring straight into the water.
The Roding has the second most sewage put into it in terms of number of hours after the Thames in London, so it has a huge sewage problem. But those are only the combined sewer overflows that we know about. And there's an even bigger problem with sewage spillages we don't even know about, and this is one of these.
It was 2 weeks ago that water companies, including Thames Water, announced that together they'd invest £10 billion to modernise sewers and reduce spills of overflowing sewage into waterways like these.
We need water companies to work with local rivers trusts, river guardians, to actually come up with a practical plan of what they intend to do with that money. And on the Roding, we'd love to sit down with them and say, OK, here's the top 20, 30, 40 sewer spills along the river, places that are really causing the problem. What is your solution to this?
A mile downriver at Wanstead Park, volunteers are carrying out restoration work. The impacts of climate change are the theme of this year's London Rivers Week.
If our rivers don't work and work effectively, you may have increased issues around flooding, you have increased issues of water quality, and rivers, as they were seen in the past, become an environmental hazard rather than an environmental asset, which is what they should be.
There's litter all over this thing, so plastic pollution's a problem as well.
It is a big problem, not only here but everywhere, so we also work in addressing plastic pollution. And these structures, sometimes they might look ugly with rubbish, but it is also collecting them.
We contacted Thames Water today, who told us we're currently designing a solution to reduce blockages and pollution from surface water in the Aldersbrook and River Roding area. Stopping discharges altogether will take time and sustained investment. However, each step we take on this journey is a move in the right direction. And with spills like this, another one filmed by the River Roding Trust, that journey can't get moving soon enough to protect these ecosystems for all our sakes. Carolyn Sim, ITV News.
There is plenty still to come on the programme, including a blooming success story for this well-travelled orchid. Plus, we'll have all the winners from this year's People's Project. But first, a blind woman from Essex says her independence and privacy is being compromised by her hospital repeatedly sending her letters she cannot read. Sam Fox has asked Southend University Hospital to contact her by email, but the post keeps on coming, meaning she needs to rely on others to read to her. It is a common problem. Charities are calling on the NHS to honour its legal obligations to those with visual impairments. Kit Bradshaw reports.
I've got a letter here from the hospital.
Reading confidential medical documents has become something of a group activity for Sam Fox. She's blind, and despite asking for emails instead, the letters from her local hospital continue to pile up.
I've got no idea what that's saying because I can't even see the paper. All I can do is feel it. It is just black. So it's a waste of time sending me a letter.
Voice memos.
Sam has needed to attend a whole host of appointments at Southend University Hospital since breaking her foot running the London Marathon last October. It's meant a lot of letters too.
How would you like to receive communication about those hospital appointments?
Oh, by email. I know they've marked my file to say that I want it by email, alternative format. It's not happening.
Research by the Royal National Institute of Blind People found that 77% of those surveyed rarely or never received healthcare information in the alternative format they required. 60% of those polled said it would drastically improve their quality of life if the issue was resolved.
What should happen is a person should be able to say, I'm a Braille reader, please could you give me my information in Braille, and they say it once to their GP or once to their hospital, and that's it. By that point it should go onto the system, it should be recorded, and that need should be met. But unfortunately, if computer systems don't speak to each other, that line of communication just breaks down.
The Mid and South Essex NHS Trust says it's sorry to hear Sam has had issues receiving correspondence in the form she's asked for. New national standards for accessible information across the health service are due to be published this summer.
How much of a difference would it make to you if this issue was resolved?
It would be bliss. It would just be wonderful to give me some of my independence back, some of my freedom and my privacy. I don't want everyone knowing all my information. I want my information my way.
A clear request that may take some time to become reality. Kit Bradshaw, ITV News, South Benfleet.
OK, the ITV News continues at 6:30. Here's a look ahead now with Mary.
Coming up in the programme, tragedy in Bournemouth. A man is questioned in connection with the deaths of a 12-year-old girl and a 17-year-old boy. But it's still not clear exactly what happened. The findings of the latest search in connection with Madeleine McCann's disappearance. More bad news for homeowners. Prices fall at their fastest yearly rate for 14 years. And the remarkable rescue from Everest's death zone. Do join me for those stories and more at 6:30.
Two of London's pioneering institutions have invented a new liver dialysis device that could significantly improve patient care. Researchers from University College London and the Royal Free Hospital completed the first successful inpatient trial with the device called DiaLive. It's a way to reduce the severity of symptoms for those who have multiple organ failure.
What this device does is to deal with why the liver is failing and why all the organs around it are failing. And what it does is to take out these nasty substances, allowing the liver to regenerate. And hopefully this regeneration will result in improvement in survival of these patients.
Emma Raducanu has parted ways with her coach Sebastian Sachs after less than 6 months together. Writing on social media, the tennis star from Bromley wished Sachs the best and said it's unfortunate that circumstances have made it unfeasible for the pair to continue to work together. Raducanu was recently forced to miss the French Open and will not return for Wimbledon this year due to injuries. Next, to a little flower that's come a long way from Chicago, in fact, and hopefully moved another step away from the threat of extinction. The endangered orchid was flown to the UK 2 weeks ago and has flowered in the UK for the first time. Callum Watkinson is at Kew Gardens for us now. Callum, go on, give us the Latin name for that orchid.
Dendrophylax lindenii, Duncan, as I'm sure you're aware. It's also known as the Florida ghost orchid, or sometimes as the white frog orchid. And if you take a look at these close-ups that we filmed a bit earlier, I think you can see exactly how it came by that name. And now the bud for this one made its way here to Kew from Chicago. It had to be carried in a box on someone's lap. They're pretty fragile. It's been here since Monday, and the very warm conditions in this greenhouse have actually encouraged it to open up its flower. You can see some time lapse of that, several days condensed down into a minute, and on that footage you can actually see the moment that those petals open. A UK first and a very exciting moment for botanists here. We can talk now to Alberto Trinco. And Alberto, these are so delicate. It's actually a miracle it made it here at all, isn't it?
Yeah, it's very, very delicate, and they don't like to change environment very much. And this plant has gone through quite a few changes in the last couple of weeks. It went from Chicago to Kew, then to Chelsea Flower Show, then back to Kew. So yeah, it's really is quite a miracle to see it bloom.
And it's an endangered species. How rare are these?
Very much rare. There are around 500 plants in Cuba, and more or less 1,500 in southern Florida. So it's a very small population.
And what's the relationship? These actually live on trees, so it's to do with the destruction of its habitat. To just talk a little bit about that.
So yes, these plants are endangered for habitat loss. So many trees have been cut, especially during World War II, to provide timber for the war. But unfortunately, even illegal poaching, so a plant taken from the wild.
Now, it's very small. You've definitely got visually much more impressive things here at Kew, if you don't mind me saying. But what's so exciting for people like yourself about moments like this?
It's one of those orchids that you always see in pictures and you always hear and read about it. But to see it in real life here, it's absolutely amazing.
Okay, well, congratulations. I think you can sleep a bit easier at night now that it's got here. Now, in terms of how long this will last, best case scenario is about 3 weeks. Worst case scenario is going to be about 3 days. They're not sure. It has been under a lot of stress. So if you want to see it, you might want to get down here pretty swiftly.
Callum, thank you very much. Callum Watkinson there at Kew Gardens. Right, on to the weather, and it's been a bit more sunny out there today, hasn't it? Let's have a look at the forecast then with Aisling Creevey.
ITV London weekday weather is sponsored by Octopus Electric Vehicles. Car, charger and energy.
Hello there, and a very good evening to everybody at home. Well, we did eventually get to see a little bit of sunshine breaking through today, but there is going to be more on offer in terms of sunshine for the next few days. We're still going to hang on to that fairly chilly breeze and still staying dry out there as well. But very quickly through this evening, that cloud starts to seep in again from the northeast, so turning quite cloudy overnight, and temperatures holding up with the breeze and the cloud at around 9 or 10 degrees Celsius. But a little difference to tomorrow morning. From very first thing, there's already going to be some bright and sunny spells around. That cloud will be a little bit quicker to break up, but it is going to stay fairly breezy, but some good spells of sunshine for all of us by the afternoon, and temperatures managing to get up to around 18 to 20 degrees Celsius. So if you're in the shelter away from that breeze, you will feel the strength of that June sunshine out there. Then from Friday into Saturday, it's going to stay largely dry, and again we will get to see more in the way of sunshine, perhaps temperatures coming up a degree or so, highs of around 21 degrees Celsius. But right the way through the outlook, we hang on to that northeasterly breeze, and then it's the early part of next week we will start to see a little bit more in the way of cloud. Coming up next, your pollen forecast.
ITV London weekday weather is sponsored by Octopus Electric Vehicles.
Hello, summer. Piri sponsors ITV Pollen Count.
Well, it's potentially a tricky few days for hay fever sufferers to come. As we head through Friday, Saturday and through Sunday, the pollen count is going to be high. Tree pollen has now dropped back to low. Bye-bye.
Finally, for the last 2 weeks, you have been voting for which community projects in London you think should win up to £70,000 as part of the People's Projects. Well, the votes are in, counted and verified. Daniel Henry has been to visit our winning projects to give them the good news and some very large cheques.
Three great projects, three big winners, and today it was time to celebrate.
Welcome to the First Down project. I've got a big cheque for them. They put in an application for the National Lottery, and I'm here to tell them that they've won.
£41,230.
Thank you. It just means so much. Thank you so much. We can actually get all the equipment that we need because everything has been about making do with things that we found and people donating to us. So being able to make a real good go of it and be able to get speakers in to educate us and help us to grow even more vegetables and look at the nutrition side of things and just bring the community together.
All right, so this is the Wigs for Heroes hub over here in East London. They applied for funding from the National Lottery and the People's Project. I've got another big cheque to give them. Let's see what they think about it. A big cheque for Wigs for Heroes. For the community hub.
This type of money isn't something we see every day. Even raising £10,000 in our line of work is hard. So to see almost £70,000 on a cheque is unbelievable. It's an astronomical amount for us.
This is the Songs and Smiles project here in East London, and it's designed to bring the community closer to care homes, particularly children. The cheque I've got in my hand will help them do that, but they don't know that I'm here. So let's just bell and see if they're in.
This cheque is yours.
Wow, and thank you. Honestly, every single person who's voted for us, it means the absolute world, and the happiness and the joy that we're going to spread and the lives that we change, it's just is just phenomenal. It's all quite overwhelming, so thank you. It does make you want to cry. I'm holding back the tears. I know.
This cash will change lives, keeping communities connected across our capital. Daniel Henry, ITV News.
That is what it's all about, helping people who help others. And that is the perfect way to finish the programme. The ITV Evening News is next with Mary. But for now, from all of us on the London team, thank you for watching and have a lovely evening. Bye-bye.